What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Ask a CISSP episode of The Other Side of the Firewall, where we talk about the latest and greatest of cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers. Speaking of which, on the podcast today, I have the ultimate risk guest, right? So I work in risk now, but it's fairly new to me. However, I've brought on a guest to the show who has a lot more experience and can kind of break down what it is to work in risk and how it impacts a large organization. So I have Angela Diaz. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Very excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
No, awesome. So I'm glad we were able to connect and to make this recording session happen so quickly. Behind the scenes, so everybody knows, right? So Monday, Tuesday are topics, Wednesday discussion, Thursdays Ask a CISSP, and then Fridays everything else, movies, books, games, all that cool stuff. But I have not had a lot of guests on for the second half of 2025, just because everybody's super busy, and I either want to talk more in depth with people who I've had on the show previously, or I want to speak to brand new people, right? Like, duh, there's only really two categories. But when I say brand new people, I mean people who are doing things in areas that I have not discussed with in the past. So if you guys tune into the previous episode, which in our current timeline, I have not published yet, but I talked to a BISO, so a business information security officer, first one I've had on the show. And now I have on a master of risk. So if you could break down who you are, your experience, and then we can kind of go into what you currently do.
You talked me up a lot. I hope I can live up to it. You set a high expectation. My name is Angela Diaz. I am in Phoenix, Arizona. I have been in risk for 12 years. I actually started out on the fraud merchant side of risk for about 4 years. And then I transitioned over into financial crimes, a much broader category of risk. So a lot of regulatory compliance with anti-money laundering, customer onboarding, product risk, new account opening. And then the last half of my career, I have split between first line risk and second line risk. So in first line risk, I also looped back around to fraud. Lots of time in control management, fraud and claims management. I spent some time in information security and more of strategy risk for compromised data. And currently I've spent the past couple of years in second line risk. So kind of like the highest level of risk with full oversight, primarily focusing on operational risk, again, in enterprise fraud, so several business units, lots of collaboration with cybersecurity, information security, data scientists, product managers. Really, really exciting, helping executives navigate the risk management framework of a large organization and how important it is and how it benefits them and how to use it appropriately, and lots of risk analysis. So analyzing the current environment, looking for improvements, assessing new controls, new technology, a lot of change management. So it's very, very collaborative across a large organization, a lot of teams to get the work done, but it's super exciting, super important. And with mostly focusing on financial crimes and fraud, I have spent a lot of time partnering with cybersecurity. So definitely has a special place in my heart for sure.
No, awesome. So I think three things, right? So if you could kind of include us on how did you get into fraud to begin with, and then the difference between first line and second line, because I think a lot of people don't understand the three lines of defense. It was fairly new to me as well, coming out of the military. So I think that would be good to educate the audience in.
Yeah, definitely. So I started out, so I had a completely different career path in my early 20s, suffered an injury that caused me to not be able to do that job anymore. So I was like, what do I do from here? So I took a customer service position. It was a contract position for Holiday. I did really well, so they hired me on permanently as a customer service manager. Through customer service, tons of phone calls from fraud victims come through. They just call the number on the back of the card. They need help. So we dealt with a lot of the victims. And then we would also have people committing fraud calling in to try to rush their transaction because they want to hurry up and get this transaction. So I just found those interactions really interesting. Wanted to know kind of what happens after this phone call because we're always transferring the call to the actual fraud people. So an opening came up and I went for it and I got it. And the rest is history. I just kind of kept climbing, took various roles. And I think I appreciate fraud so much because a lot of times in our 9 to 5, it's hard to sometimes feel or to see like where the value add is. We just look at it as like a job, a desk job, these administrative tasks. And every job has a human element to it, but I think fraud specifically is super special because you really do get to make a difference. Fraud affects people, victims in an extremely negative way, and being a part of that fight is really, really exciting for me.
That's awesome. I'm sorry to stop you there with fraud, because I think that is really cool that you do have that. It's almost like being a 911 operator, right? Like, obviously, no one's going to die from this, hopefully. But I've had that panic as well, right? So, as a young airman traveling across states and using my car at a gas station, things like that to buy fuel, I've had it where now my car has been compromised. I need to call this number. And then I would say probably 5 or 6 years ago, during the COVID age, and where I just so happened to be looking at my bank statement and saw these random charges, right? Like small charges that build into bigger charges, as though they were testing the card to see how much money we can get.
Which
Which
is
is
That's
yeah,
exactly what you do.
polar opposite from broke airman Williams, right? Where like as soon as the car was compromised, I was out of money. But then having to experience it secondhand, right? It was more like I was looking at my statement for something else. I was like, what is this charge? And then you make the phone call and you're like, were you like it happened in 3 different states, right? Like back to back to back to back. But being in a better position can also be devastating, because then they just kept asking for more money and more money. It's harder to ask for that money back. So I think that's really cool that you came from that side of the house. So I'm sorry to to derail us. So back
No?
to first line, second line.
Yeah, definitely. Before I jump into that, I want to kind of mention something that I think is really important is there actually are fatalities tied to fraud.
Really?
So, yes, there's cases upon cases where people have lost their entire life savings due to some of these scams or being hacked. So they have taken their own lives because of it.
Okay.
Fraud can be tied to human trafficking. So I think it's easy for us to think about the fraud that we're exposed to on a daily basis, right? Which
Right.
is like a couple of transactions on your card that might total a couple $100s, but the scams and the complexity of them have really grown over the past decade. And I think that's why we're in a bit more of a crisis. And that does lead into the importance of first line and second line and third line. So the difference is the first line risk really sits alongside the business leaders. They get to know their processes. They are actually drafting maps of those processes and guiding them through drafting issues and regulatory responses. If we've taken a regulatory finding, they may work hand in hand with them even on how to respond to a fraud. So they are really alongside the business, attached at the hip, kind of managing risk with the business and within those processes, following guidance policies, this risk management framework. What second line of defense is we are oversight of how that is working. So it's very, very layered, and it's designed that way for accuracy's sake. We want to, believe that, okay, we've staffed ourselves to the hilt with these great first line risk managers. They are guiding the business on what to do correctly, and they're doing everything correctly. We have nothing to worry about. But that's not the reality, and that's not the way a robust framework should work when we're talking about such a heavily regulated environment, and an environment where we're protecting our customers' money. They're trusting us with their money. So second line is really oversight of that. It is not quality control. It is definitely more monitoring. So we are looking at a lot of data to kind of cross-check what does the risk environment really look like. The leaders and the business units have to go through lots of different risk assessments independently, where we will come in and independently review how they laid out their processes and risks and how they described them and rated them and responded to them and validate it. And we may feel, so it's very independent. It's designed that way because when you self-evaluate yourself, right, it's easy to, you're acting from a place of non-bias. You are
Right.
you are evaluating yourself. So we are able to have a little bit more non-bias. We are still acting in the best interest of the bank and the business and frontline risk. They are our partners, so we have a great relationship with them. And it's definitely still extremely collaborative, but it's definitely wearing a different hat. Third line of defense is audit.
Right.
Audit is very far removed, of course, and they are coming from much more of a high level where they do not have as much working knowledge of the business units and the processes within. They are really performing similarly to the way a regulator would. And they are there to make sure that the other layers of defense are performing as they should. So they will call out opportunities that, of course, will make their way back to all of the other layers of defense for things that we may have missed, or, opportunities to just be kind of on the same page, or things that we need to remediate, because it's better that audit or second line found it as opposed to a regulator. We want to be as proactive as possible, as constantly and consistently managing the risk environment to an acceptable level, and not just waiting for the regulators to come in and find something that perhaps has been going on for a while that could have been prevented and addressed much earlier. So it's very, very layered. Sometimes people will feel that it's redundant. All three lines of defense do serve a very different role and purpose, and do interact very differently with the risk programs and the partners. And it is very, very much needed, again, when you're looking at the environment we're in, to have the appropriate level of due diligence. You really do need all those layers.
No, that's a very, you described it perfectly, because I don't think a lot of people obviously don't, who are not in the financial sector, don't understand that it takes a lot to get to a regulator, right? So like you said, you have the business unit doing their thing, they own the risk, and then you have the first line, which is close. Second line, which I believe is the best, not biased at all. And then obviously
I'm
third line.
second line. I am team second line. It's my favorite so far of all the risk areas I've been in, for sure.
Right. And then I think a lot of people would, from the outside looking in, might think that there is some kind of, you don't want people to find things. You don't want second line to find something or third line to find something, because you're going to get in trouble. And that's not the case. It's when it gets to a regulator. So once it leaves the organization, it gets to FFIEC or FDIC or whomever, that is then when it's a problem, because it is able to traverse these 4 different lines of defense to
Correct.
eventually wind up in their lap. So I think it's an awesome system and highly necessary. And other organizations do it. It's just that I believe it's most, so far of what I've seen, right? Again, I'm biased. It's the most robust in the financial sector.
Agree.
Because coming from the Department of Defense, we do have it, but we call it something different, right? You have obviously your QA, quality assurance, your wing IG, et cetera, et cetera. But I've seen firsthand how this combination just seems to click a lot better, and is a lot more expedient. So I do have that bias. I do believe that this is a really good way of going about it. So it's awesome that you're able to break it down for us. What led you to want to first go into the financial sector, but secondly, made you strive to continue to grow within it and now be a senior principal within second line of defense?
So when I was on the merchant side, it was mostly seeing smaller dollar fraud orders, purchases that were made online. And all of that is super important work. I don't want to say that it's not, but I am somebody that's very driven. And I always crave more. When I feel like I've gotten comfortable with something, I'm always like, what's the next challenge? What else can I do? And I kind of just got bit by that bug. And so I realized that if I stayed in the merchant side, I probably wouldn't have as much opportunity to grow in my career. So I started looking, and obviously the banking industry is massive. Strategically, we might see, retailers not survive, or that business slows down. Banking is banking. It's not going anywhere. And it's massive. So I was like, if I could just get my foot in that door, I think there's like a lot more out there for me. And I wanted to feel like I was making more of an impact. So I applied for a role all the way across the country. I did not think I would get it. I'm like, this is a huge reach for me, but The recruiter liked my resume. She passed it along to the hiring manager. He had grown up in the area that I was applying from. So he recognized, like, oh my goodness, this woman's applying from across the country and she's applying from the city I grew up in. So he was like, I want to meet her. And I ended up getting the position. I have, worked at lots of different size banks. I've gotten to work on a lot of remediation projects from regulators, because a part of being in risk is often you are recruited to work at banks that have recently received a consent order. They need to be staffed up to respond and do the work that needs to be done to remediate it. So I just really have gotten some really incredible opportunities to not just be a part of like business as usual by switching over to the finance sector, but really like long, 1 to 3 year, like impactful projects. I've gotten to build out a lot of things, which I really love. Some of them went better than others, but those were really incredible learning opportunities as well for me to tuck into my tool belt. So, and then kind of tying it back to, how impactful the fraud actually is, and how people are losing their life savings, or being victims of sextortion and human trafficking. It's even though I'm, in risk, I'm at a desk in AC, I'm not kind of out there in law enforcement or out there in the field physically actively fighting the fraud, taking them down. I know that a lot of what I've implemented and been a part of over my career has made it that much harder for them to take advantage of people and get past the banks. I've gotten to do a lot of education, and seeing executives learn risk and be able to practice it and get excited about it is very fulfilling. So mentoring, my path was very unique. I didn't just get my bachelor's and go to work. I took a very non-conventional path, and I just hustled and grinded with just grit and drive and an eagerness to learn and be good to the people around me. So I also get to do a lot of development and mentoring in the financial sector, helping other people navigate that path and with career trajectory. So I just think I've really, really appreciated that opportunity by switching over to the financial industry. It's a lot more than just, branches and transactions. It really is.
Right. No, and that's wonderful how you laid it out. But I guess I would ask because it's not all about. I always tell people it's not all about academics or certifications or anything like that. Right. Those are tools in your tool belt, and you do learn from those. And then there's certain HR blocks that need to be checked. So when it comes to what's necessary on the academic side, can you kind of go into what would kind of line somebody up to be within risk, and then we can kind of go into because I would like to I think it's cool that you had that personal connection that somewhat aided in your, option the job. At least it's a good icebreaker, right? To get your foot in the door. But obviously your resume and your devotion and, like you said, grit is what seals the deal. So I guess I would say, what from an academic standpoint should somebody be looking for, as well as what about from professional or body of work should they have or should they be trying to obtain?
So I'll be fully transparent with this question, because I stand behind it because I experienced it myself. I think that there is definitely something to be said for a traditional academic background, like getting your bachelor's degree or your master's degree. But I don't think that path is for everyone. I think that there's people out there that might have ADHD or other learning disabilities that make it very difficult or financial struggles that make it very difficult for them to commit to or afford some of those traditional educational paths. So to be honest with you, I think that if you are going to get your bachelor's degree and you want to be in risk, I think you should just pick the major that you enjoy, that you're going to be able to commit to, that is easy for you to be successful to graduate. I think you could do art history. I think you could do business. I think you could do economics. It doesn't really matter. A lot of banks just are curious to look to see that you may have some formal education in your background. I think years of experience comes into play a lot too. So definitely making sure that the roles that you take strategically aligned to your path so that your resume, as you do gain years of experience, is not all over the place. It tells a nice
Right.
story, shows growth as well. And I think that something that is super helpful is certifications. But I actually waited to get a certification until this past year. I had not had a problem getting any roles with just my experience, but I'd gotten to a point in my career where I felt like, okay, I really want. And this is a personal decision. I really want those letters after my name, right? I wanted to be able to say that I was a certified risk management
Right.
professional. The certification did not teach me anything that I didn't probably already know from being in the industry for the years that I was, but it was a very affordable certification. It was accredited, and it was broad enough to where it was a wise investment for me because it also allows me to still have flexibility.
Okay.
So even though I focus a lot in fraud, I see a lot of people get, a fraud specific certification or because there are a lot of really fantastic ones out there. But I also think that if you're going to make the investment into a certification and you aren't necessarily sure what area of risk you're going to end up specializing in, especially long term, if you're earlier on in your career, then possibly some of the broader certifications
Okay.
might be a wiser choice. And then you can always add on to them as time goes on when you find like a specific area that you are going to focus on because there's just so many out there. Some of the certifications are also very, very expensive. So I always tell people to be careful because you want to make sure that you're making a wise investment, especially if you're someone that is on a very structured budget with what you can and can't invest in as far as additional kind of education. You don't, just because a certification is $5,000 doesn't mean it's the best one.
Right.
My certification was very, very affordable, but it's accredited, and it was very widely recognized. So I always tell people to be smart with their money as well. A lot of the certifications come with a lot of ongoing and very costly fees as well. So I always tell people to be careful with that.
No, I think that's sage advice. I'm currently going through that, having to get a bunch of because I don't want to say the type of credits because then people will know what I'm trying to gather quickly. But I need a bunch of continuing education credits because those are pretty generic, right? For certification, it's not that I wasn't doing the work; it's just I was not documenting. So now
Yes,
I
I
have to
know
go back and be like, oh
you.
man, what was I doing?
Yeah, I have to do that as well. So that's actually a good one. Document all of that. The other thing I want to add too that I think is important for career trajectory outside of, a fancy certification or a formal education is I will tell people this through and through. Never turn down special projects or side projects. If your manager reaches out to you looking for volunteers for anything that is outside of your day-to-day, take it. Take the opportunity. It is such a valuable learning experience. It is something great that you can add to your resume, again, outside of just day-to-day duties, which you might look just like everybody else on paper of the day-to-day duties. Take the opportunity to take the special projects. Even if you don't know what you're doing, say, I'll take it. I'll probably have a lot of questions and I'll probably need a lot of feedback and support along the way, but yeah, I'll raise my hand for it. I built a lot of my career trajectory on having that attitude and getting to it definitely added to what I could, put on my resume and list out my skill set. So
when it comes to soft skills, because it seems as though you have to be flexible, you have to kind of be self-motivated. But what do you think is the biggest soft skill someone should have if they're interested in pursuing this, or something they should be working on if they're interested in pursuing a career in risk?
being able to be collaborative and being able to lead a diverse group of players. What I mean by that is risk management, as I said earlier, you're working with a lot of multiple teams in parallel to each other. So you have the data scientists that have their role to do. You have the product managers that have their role to do. You have the operations leaders that have their role to do. They're always often in the same room on various projects. And that's in any area of risk management, not just fraud. And a risk manager really needs to understand enough about each of those people. So get to know your people as individuals. What kind of leader are they? How do they like to be approached? How do they like to be approached in a meeting or via email? Like, learn all of that, get your people skills down pat, and be able to direct a room. Almost think about it like an orchestra conductor, right? Like, make sure you're creating space for the data scientist to say something if he feels like he needs to interject something important. Make sure you're creating space for the product manager. Help them understand each other's perspectives. Be good at bringing all of it back to a central focus point. So I think risk management, that is one of the biggest and most important soft skills, especially if you climb high enough to where you are not just doing assessments on paper, or obviously not physically on paper in digital day and age, but to where you're not just hidden behind the assessment, but if you get to the level of leadership where you are in the rooms and parts of the conversation, that is a very, very important soft skill to have.
No, that's an awesome analogy, especially when it comes to the orchestra, right? Because it is a cacophony of different opinions and different perspectives. Because you are looking at a bunch of different silos, and you're going both vertical and horizontal to really get at what the issue may be and how to solve it. So no, that's great. So I want to go into the initiative that we talked about before. So kind of what brought you to being a leader and a mentor and a public speaker within it, and then just the cool name and the concept.
So so I joined Fraud Fight Club as a coach advisor. I think not that long ago. Last year was my first year. And full transparency, with as many years in the industry as I have not been someone that's gone to a lot of conferences. They're very expensive and require travel. I love watching webinars, but I hadn't physically been to a conference. And the bank that I was working at the time, the founder of the Fraud Fight Club conference had reached out to us to offer us a package of tickets at a group rate, which is often what they do because they want to have a diverse audience of varying like banks. So they'll reach out and offer tickets. So I had never heard of the conference before. I'm like, I've heard of every fraud conference. Why haven't I heard of this one? And it was because it was only their second year, but I started looking it up and I was like, okay, this looks really different and really cool. So I originally was going just as an attendee, but via LinkedIn, I started chatting with the founders of the conference just in getting us set up to get our tickets and how many we needed. And I said, hey, if you need any help behind the scenes at all with this, see you have tons of different like coaches and tons of different roles, let me know. Set up a meet and greet with the founder. We clicked immediately. They are incredible people. And the first year I actually made it to the main stage. So I got to be on the main stage as a panelist with some really impressive people. It was definitely one of those moments where I had imposter syndrome. I'm like, wow, am I really here? Did I really make it here alongside, these individuals? But yeah, I also had done, before the conference, I had done also a couple of webinars. So I'd always done that, but that was definitely the first time I was on a stage live. The thing that piqued my interest about Fraud Fight Club is a lot of conferences, they focus a lot on the technical side of things, which is very important. And they also sales is a big part of it. So there'll be a lot of vendors there that are looking to market their fraud tool and their technology to the banks and to the leaders that are attending the conference, which is okay and part
That
of
makes sense, right? Right.
But Fraud Fight Club, they really wanted to set themselves apart. They wanted to still have that. We have sponsors. They are incredible. They are at the conference with us. They have their booth set up, but it is limited to, a smaller number so that it's not a distraction from the rest of the conference. Fraud Fight Club is really a perfect blend of technical. So you will learn a lot at this conference. You will get to network with a lot of people and you will get into the nitty gritty on all the latest, greatest technology, how to leverage data. You will get all of that for your organization or for yourself individually. But what they interject perfectly is what I spoke about a couple of times already, which is the human side of fraud. So some of our speakers are out there in the world, physically traveling to high-risk countries, meeting victims, helping them get resources that they would not have had or even known about, going out into the field and looking for fraudsters and learning about these crime rings. And we had an incredible keynote speaker whose son had actually taken his own life because he had been scammed as part of a sextortion fraud scam. He believed that it was real. He did not know that it was not real. It was just a very incredible, powerful way to open up the conference, but it makes it a lot more interesting, eye-opening. It reminds us all of why we do what we do. And for me personally, like I said before, it is easy to get wrapped up in the technical stuff and what we do day to day at our desks, but that can lead to burnout. It can start to feel monotonous. You can go into autopilot, and that affects the quality of work. So going to a conference like this that is more of a think tank, right? Where you are really talking to other people that are just as passionate as you and come from all different areas of this industry. I met an incredible detective that runs a nonprofit. So you just meet all these different people that are incredibly fascinating that you can add to your network and just learn a lot from. And then on top of that, there is also a unique spin on each technical topic that we have. We focused a lot on AI. We focused a lot on the scams that are impacting fraud right now because
Right.
those are having the biggest financial impact. And just the guests, the guests that Fraud Fight Club gets are just so diverse and just really great speakers that speak with personality, put their whole heart into it. So you are not bored. It is very interactive, a lot of Q&A, and there's the main stage. And then they have deep dive rooms, which is really awesome. You can sign up for special topics that are called deep dives. It might look a little different this year, but remember, I'm reflecting on what the conference looked like last year, but limited to smaller number of people so that you can interact with the panelists and the speakers like me on a more intimate level and really talk to us and have intimate conversations on specific topics. And you can get a lot more assistance with things that are going on in your organization or your role in those smaller
Right.
conversations as well. So it's definitely really special. It went incredible last year, so we are doing it again this year. It'll be, I think, the second week of April in Charlotte. The venue was really cool. They don't do it at a hotel. They picked a very awesome and unique venue in Charlotte. Very bright, colorful, vibrant, really like creative space. But yeah, it's just very unique. And the name Fraud Fight Club, again, like this is like a real fight. It is a very, very serious crisis that we are literally fighting against, whether you are
Right.
at a bank or in law enforcement. It is a fight. So I think that the founders really wanted the name to show the passion that they have behind it, to kind of align with that theme of a whole bunch of different people from all walks of life with these incredible backgrounds coming together to unite in the fight. So I'm super, super blessed to be a part of it. I did an interview with them last week, and I'll be doing a webinar with them in a couple weeks. So even between the conference, they just have a lot of awesome material that they're always putting out there to assist. So definitely,
No,
definitely not one to miss.
yeah, it sounds like an amazing initiative. Like you already piqued my interest because there's certain aspects of it that I didn't even think about. Right. So you brought up a couple of different topics. So I usually when I think of fraud when it comes into anything social networking, is usually top of mind. And then for cybersecurity on the show, we've talked about pig butchering and other topics. Where you're able to traffic people, sextortion, things of that nature. But I've never thought about someone doing self-harm or something like someone's life coming to an end because of fraud. So that definitely is eye-opening. So thank you for educating me in that respect, because I never put those two together. But the other one being the AI piece of it. So we talk a lot about deep fakes and things of that nature, and we know it's always, it's a lot. A lot of stuff is coming down the pipe faster than we know how to protect it. So it's good to see that there's organizations such as the Fraud Fight Club that have this initiative to kind of educate people better, because like I have two older children and one younger one. So for the younger one, I'm always talking to him about Don't be caught in phishing. Don't let anybody take your
Don't click
information.
the link.
Right, don't click the link and things of that nature. But with the older ones, it's always a little bit more complicated of a conversation because you do have sextortion and you have, other like again, having someone take from you or take your money, things of that nature. But never think about that piece where it can cause someone to, feel like they lost it all. So that's definitely something I'm glad you hammered home.
Yeah, yeah. It's really important, and it's all ages. Teenagers, definitely talk to them about sextortion. Teenagers are part of that digital age. They're putting a lot of information out there on the internet, photos of themselves. They might send intimate or joking around photos of themselves to people they're dating or friends, and they can end up being a target because of that. And yeah, I have seen stories, unfortunately, of people as young as 14 taking their life over sextortion scams, again, from
Gotcha.
and I've seen, people that were in their older years, isolated, lonely, fell for romance scams. They
Right.
believe that they really found a partner. They got scammed out of their life savings. So imagine the devastation of realizing that your life savings is gone and that a
Mhm.
love that you believed in for some of these scams go on for years, not weeks, years. So believing for years that someone was really in love with you on the other side of the world and developing what you
Right.
thought was a real relationship with them, losing that all at once definitely can impact a downward spiral that results in people taking their own lives. It's very, very dark.
Right.
I think it's important for people to remember that and talk about it because it makes me do a better job at work. It does. When I remember that I'm not just doing administrative tasks, right? Of course, I'm answering emails, I'm doing assessments in Excel, I'm reviewing data, but it's tied to something far bigger than that. Far, far bigger than that. And protecting the banks from financial loss as well. Banks are it is a mix of customer money, their own profit money, and there's a lot to it to make sure that nothing is impacted negatively. So it really, really drives home how important the work that we do is.
No, absolutely. I think you summed it up pretty well. So this is a part of the show where I take the hard pivot. I'm like, okay, now we've talked about your background, your experience, your current initiatives, but what do you do outside of work, outside of your being a risk rock star, a mentor, a public speaker, all that good stuff? What are you doing for yourself or your family, or a combination of both? What are you doing to unwind from all of this very kind of it could be sad, it could be tragic, things of that nature.
So I'm actually super passionate about yoga. I found the yoga practice actually after, I was injured during my first career. So partially got involved in it for, the physical benefits, but also it certainly has a lot of mental benefits. So as soon as I started practicing yoga, I was hooked. It's a moment all by yourself on your mat. Yes, you are doing physical stretches, which is super important for us to maintain our mobility and our physical health as we age. I do think we need to undo a lot of the damage that we do from sitting at desks all day or standing at desks all day or sitting in cars or sitting on the couch watching TV.
Right.
It makes me feel productive that, okay, I've done all this at work, but to your point, I can't just crash out after work on burnout and veg out in front of the TV, right? There's a time and a place for that, but that's not always super productive. So the benefit of being on the mat and being led through these breathing exercises and these stretches is a moment to kind of disconnect, not only from work stress, but from the stress in the rest that's going on in the rest of the world, and not just distract. You're facing it, you're breathing through it, you're thinking through it. And a lot of the mantras of yoga translate really well to just how I show up at work and for my family, and for the people that I mentor, develop, and lead. Yoga is a very mindful practice about always being able to tap into your calm, to let things go, to let things pass through you instead of carrying them with you.
Right.
It very much also has the lead with empathy and kindness and gentleness aspect to it, which I bring into my work life for sure. So yeah, that is that I was a teacher for a couple of years. I
Okay.
do it anymore. There's only so many hours in the day, and I just couldn't maintain long term. But I was a yoga teacher also for a year or two. So that, and then getting outside, being with nature, any chance I can get outside, I will do. In I live in Phoenix, Arizona.
As I say, you're in Arizona, yeah.
The desert is beautiful. We have incredible hikes. We have blue skies and sunshine pretty much 365 days a year. So spending as much time in nature. Again, we live in a digital age, right? And I appreciate it. I see the value in it. I need it. You will always see me with my phone in my hands, and I will turn down the modern conveniences of technology. And I love a good, app and Netflix binge. But I think that it's also super important to remember how much bigger the world is than those things, and to just, appreciate like a trail walk, a walk around your neighborhood, sitting on the porch and watching the rain, like, seeing birds interact in your backyard. I try to spend as much time outside as possible connecting with nature. I think it's good for us to take time away from our screens and remember, look up at the stars. It goes beyond planet Earth, like it goes on and on forever. So I try to implement a lot of mindfulness activities. We've talked about how serious and dark what we do for our day jobs can get. So I think implementing as much kind of kindness and mindfulness and self-care and trying to see the positive and put more kindness out into the world is super, super important. So I look to do that as the polar opposite of being
Right.
a risk officer, right? That's my softer side.
No, that makes sense, right? And I think being mindful, being in the moment, and understanding who you are and the space that you occupy are all amazing things. I did yoga when I was in Turkey, so I did it for about 6 months. I could almost do the position where you can use your core to keep yourself in a handstand. Almost there.
Got to keep practicing.
Man, I'm like 4 years removed. I keep saying I'm gonna start doing that at home again, but of course, my favorite position was the child pose. It's great, right?
Or
That's the
shavasana at the end
best,
where you just lay
right?
flat on your back and the hard work's over. Like, I see you, Ryan. I see you.
Yeah, so a warrior one or what have you. So I did enjoy it though. I should start doing it again, especially like you said, from the constantly sitting, or like I have a stand up desk, like you see the cameras following me around. But even that, like I found that standing also hurts sometimes, like
It
so
does.
because you're not moving around. And,
Yep.
I'm only going to get older. I'm not getting younger, so I do need to do something.
True.
But so you said you go outside, and my only experience, right? So I went to Fort Huachuca early in my military career. It's over by Tombstone. Like you have like one main street called Fry Boulevard. I went there for an IT class, and it's unbelievably hot. It was X-ray heat hot. Like it literally felt like I. So a prime example is I kept driving past these cactuses or cacti or whatever you want to call the plural of them, and they were burnt, and I couldn't understand why. So finally, I asked somebody like, do you guys like burn them for a reason or something like that?" It was like, "No, it's so hot they catch fire."
Plus, yeah, the sun. The sun is very, very unforgiving. We are in an extreme heat warning right now. We also get a lot of
Okay,
air quality warnings because obviously with the desert, the dust gets kicked up in the air. We're
right.
breathing that in all of the time. So yes, the heat here is no joke. I think it's been like as hot as 115 already.
Oof.
And we're
Yeah.
just getting into July, but you mentioned Turkey, and one other thing I think that's good to mention that is important to me outside of work is international travel. My husband and I love internationally traveling any chance we get. Just seeing other cultures, how they live, how different it is, different food, learning about that. It's just it's a great experience, and it's a really nice added perspective that gets us kind of out of your own head and out of your own
Right.
world. So that is definitely something that is super, super important to me, and I think keeps me like well-rounded and grounded outside of what we do for our 9 to 5.
Yeah, I love to travel as well. And not knocking Arizona, like it's gorgeous vistas. Like
Yeah. Oh
the place
no,
is
this
gorgeous.
won't come in the
It's
summer.
just I don't remember ever being that hot. It's outside of being deployed to the desert.
Yeah, it is not safe. I tell people, like, everybody's like, "Oh, I need to come visit you." I'm like, "Okay, do not come July, August. Like, just don't, because it's not safe. You can't sit down outside. You will burn yourself on something. The sun is very, very unforgiving. You definitely do not want to hike here in the summer. Tourists do it all the time, and we end up with, unfortunately, fatalities because they just don't understand that it's just not safe. Lots of heat stroke, lots of, pets too. It's very harsh for pets. So there's always a lot of campaigns around making sure you don't keep your pets in the car, that you don't keep
Right.
them in your backyard. Just like anywhere else, we're not perfect all year round. We've got the seasons, and our harsh one just happens to be September. I will say I'll still take it any day before ice and negative zero temperatures that I dealt with when I was an East Coast girl, but definitely it hot.
No, it's very true. But again, I enjoyed it. I saw Tombstone. I drove up to the Grand Canyon, which I knocked. I was like, that's dumb. I don't want to go see a big hole. And then you get there and you're like, you can feel the
Yeah.
gravity pull you in. It's like such an amazing experience.
That's why I think it's one of the
Yeah,
seven wonders of the world.
it is.
Goes the same way. Photos don't do it justice. Like, you can go
No.
online and look up tons of photos and you're like, okay, that looks just like mountains, rocks. And you can even think, oh, I've lived in mountainous areas. I've seen beautiful mountains. Nothing prepares you for your first glance at the Grand Canyon. It is absolutely beautiful. It goes on forever. It doesn't look like anything else that you will ever see, or at least not that I've seen thus far in my travels. So yeah, for anybody that hasn't seen it, highly recommend putting it on your must-do lists, because it really is an incredible experience.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad to convince me because I was much younger. And I was like, nah, it'd be dumb. And they're like, come on, guys, you gotta check it out. And I went. And I was like obviously now I have to backpedal when we're driving back home. Like, yeah, it was cool.
You're like,
But yeah, it
okay,
was amazing,
I
amazing
love it.
experience.
You're like, it's not just rocks. You got me.
Right, right. But no, it's amazing learning more about you and catching up with you.
Thank
I
you.
can't wait to check out a fraud fight club because it sounds like an amazing experience, and I will learn so much more because just in this one conversation, I've learned a couple more things that I didn't even take into consideration.
Yep, absolutely. And the audience can be so diverse. I always say, like, cybersecurity should be there, information security. I mean, the tentacles of fraud itself just are so, unfortunately, they spider out, and it's really meant for anybody that's impacted. So highly, highly recommend.
No, absolutely. So I'm gonna do the landing this plane, getting us out of here. I forgot to plug the book, so I'm supposed to be better at this. But I just like really catching up with people and find out more about them. But I have to plug the book. So the other side of the firewall, put in the case you're watching the video, which I probably messed my camera up now, is the guide. It actually comes out tomorrow, but this in the current canonical timeline, you'll hear about this after the book's already released. So July 8th is when the book comes out. So definitely check it out. We talk about how to break into cybersecurity, my own personal journey, as well as the 27 other people and how they also were able to not only break into cybersecurity but thrive within it. I think it's part biography, part empowerment tool, and then a career guide on top of it. So my first foray into writing. So I'm interested to see how people take it. But yeah, I definitely have to have you back on the show to talk about more to do with risk because we barely scratched the surface. Like I literally learn something new every single day when I go to work, and I think it'd be an eye opener to people because I don't think a lot of people even consider an occupation within risk. Like like when you're leaving the military and somebody says they're in risk, you're like, well, I do risky stuff all the time. Like I can do that, but you don't understand. Like, no, this is to better protect the business and its clientele. So I think it's a fascinating career path. So thank you for sharing that with us. And again, your personal experience and your background. So definitely got to get you back on. So you can either go to the website, theothersideofthefirewall.com or ramcyber.io if you want to go pick up the guide. But more importantly, if you want to listen to this, definitely search The Other Side of the Firewall or Angela Diaz, which the episode will have your name in it so people can find it. And again, you're doing great things in the community. I can't wait to learn more about you and to discover more about risk as I go about my own career path. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Angela Diaz. Don't be shy. I love building my network. I'm never too busy to carve out 30 minutes to connect with like-minded folks. So shoot me a message, introduce yourself. I also pre-ordered your book, Ryan. So
Oh, thank you. I appreciate
I'm
it.
also gonna be your hype woman. I'm excited to read it and share it with my network as well. Cause I also think your book's gonna be super unique and I'm just excited to dive in. But yeah, please find me on LinkedIn, everyone. It was an honor and a pleasure, Ryan, to chat with you. I would love to come back. I feel like we have a lot of ground we could
Oh,
cover.
yeah.
So I look forward to it.
Absolutely. So yeah, definitely check out Fraud Fight Club. I have all the links in the description, as well as connect with Angela to learn more about risk or just about her, unique background, as well as to get some of that great mentorship. And again, head up the website by her name. Stay safe, stay secure.